across the brutal locations depicted in Battlefield 1, from the insane defense at Suez Canal to the savage fight through the Argonne Forest. These locations show how desperate and deadly World War I was, and how it changed the world forever. Over 100 years later, the iconic maps in Battlefield 1 represent the scale and human cost of the war. Passchendaele perfectly captures the real-life horror. Both the game and history present a landscape turned into a muddy wasteland filled with craters, where soldiers drowned as often as they were shot. According to the Passchendaele Museum, on July 31st, 1917, Britain's greatest commander, Sir Douglas Haig, launched the most infamous offensive, better known as Passchendaele. He aimed to capture the commanding ridges, cut the vital railroads, and strike fear into the U-boat bases that were on the Belgian coast. But from the very first day, the rain turned the battlefields into waist-deep mud. It stalled the tanks, messed up the horses, and the infantry sludged under a hail of artillery shells. All while recon was grounded and the artillery guns there sank into the mud. As the offensive went on, they hoped to seize small objectives, digging in and then bracing for counterattacks. By November, the ridge of Passchendaele was finally in Allied hands. That victory came at a cost of over 250,000 casualties, and almost 200,000 losses on the German side. The real Passchendaele preserved parts of war into real trenches and fortifications, alongside the museum and interactive exhibits for people to watch. A huge desert at the Suez Canal represents the critical struggle for key supply routes in the Middle East, according to Dr. Adam Prime. And the Things You Should Know breakdown about Suez, the raid on the Suez Canal proved the canal's role as the British Empire's lifeline. It connected the Mediterranean and Red Seas, bringing fast troop deployment and supply movements, all the way from India, Australia, and even New Zealand. It was defended by over 30,000 British Indian soldiers alongside Anzac elements. They faced an Ottoman force of about 42,500 men that marched over 300 kilometers through the harsh desert. Those Ottomans hoped for a surprise, but they were undermined by the pioneered aerial recon that alerted defenders, allowed the British to fortify their trenches and guard. On the night of the main attack, there were fast crossings by boats and pontoons. Indian sentries, backed by Australians, Egyptians, and the Royal Navy, repelled every crossing attempt. Only 3 Ottoman boats were able to make it. The rest were taken out or captured. According to the source, the Ottomans lost 1,500 people, almost half prisoners, and the British only lost about 32. Many of those soldiers would soon go on and fight in Gallipoli, Palestine, and Mesopotamia. Battlefield 1's Suez captures the critical importance of the real Suez Canal during World War I. In that game, you're battling in a desert around the canal itself, reflecting the Ottoman Empire's actual attempts to seize that key British maritime line. But while the game emphasizes intense infantry combat along the canal, the real-life raid was more direct, but it ended up failing. Today, the Suez Canal is one of the most important trade routes. It handles about 12% of global trade, including very important oil and gas transfers. Monte Grappa put players into the deadly mountain combat in Italy. According to MonteGrappa.org, its jagged peaks weren't just scenic backdrops. They were part of 3 brutal World War I battles that took place across the Venetian Alps through 1917 to 18. After the Italians fell at Caporetto, these mountains became their defense. When the Germans and Austro-Hungarians launched their 1917 attack, they found themselves against almost impenetrable networks of bunkers and artillery nests from the Italians. Despite being outmanned, those Italians leveraged their positions and halted the enemy's push and prevented catastrophic collapse. Just like the map's bunkers, the game captures that uphill struggle. The narrow ridges, the crater terrain, and the desperate close-quarters fights across the mountains. While Battlefield 1 took some creative liberties, the core experience of the mountains remained the same. Even today, scars are visible on the mountain alongside military memorials. According to the Australian Anzac and National Army memorials, the battle across Sinai Desert was a brutal struggle for survival in the heat and cold, all to protect the Suez Canal, Great Britain's key supply route. There were Australian light horse regiments and the Imperial Camel Corps, which bravely faced not only Ottomans, but also the extreme terrain. They were rushing to lay down railroad lines and water pipelines. However, the tide turned at the Battle of Romani in 1916, where the forces launched a fierce counterattack after being outnumbered, which stopped the Ottomans and was able to secure the Suez. That win was pivotal because it allowed the Allies to push east to capture the entire Sinai Peninsula. The map in the game captured that strategic attack, where the train logistics and mobility was just as crucial as fighting. It showed that World War I wasn't just in the trenches, but across the extreme desert. 100 years later, Sinai Desert is still filled with sand dunes and plateaus, even some local farming communities. But now there's some extra highways and special resort towns. Ballroom Blitz captured the dramatic final Allied offensive on the Western Front. According to the History Archive and History.net, Battlefield 1's Ballroom Blitz put players into the luxury wartime chateaus, modeled on the real Chateau de Chantilly, once captured by Germans during the Meuse-Argonne offensive in 1918. This huge manor is more than a backdrop. While the game puts you into intense combat around the perfect building, its real-life inspiration in northern France mostly avoided attacks during World War I. However, it did serve for French military headquarters. Ballroom Blitz's intense battles captured the spirit of the real Meuse-Argonne offensive, because this was the largest and deadliest operation in American history. They were fighting through dense forests, steep waters, and layers of German fortifications. Despite brutal challenges and fierce defense, the insane final push by the Allies helped bring World War I to an end. In the game, Ballroom Blitz is filled with dazzling hallways featuring close quarters fighting, a huge courtyard, and surrounding fields. Many of Battlefield 1's locations were more than just maps. They were real places tied to memory and history. Passchendaele, in a small Belgian village, was preserved to educate tourists about the horrors of trench warfare. High in the Venetian Alps, Monte Grappa stood as both a national monument and a resting place for thousands of soldiers. Even the luxurious chateau featured in Ballroom Blitz still stands, now offering art exhibits and guided tours. Over 100 years later, these places and the stories behind them are still standing. Battlefield 1 gave players a glimpse into World War I, turning history into something you could experience and not just read about. Thanks for watching. If you like this, make sure to subscribe. I also broke down Argonne Forest and even Battlefield 3. Let me know if you want other maps.